Hey everyone, Dave here with another Blu-ray DVD collection update / haul video. This one is for the month of January 2022. We've got a whole lot of titles to cover in this one, so let's get right into it. So of course, this is the first Blu-ray DVD collection video for 2022. I hope you all had a really wonderful holiday season and New Year's period. As you can see, we are making a few changes to this series going forward into the new year. First and foremost, you can notice the background has changed. I want these videos to look a lot nicer, a lot schmicker. Also, the way I'm going to be presenting the discs to you is going to change a little bit. I'm going to do like a full unboxing for basically every title that gets sent in on a white backdrop and stuff, and I'll talk over it just a little bit. As you know, some of these videos balloon to an hour and a half each. Over the last couple of months, I've been trying to make efforts to make these videos a bit shorter by cutting them into like 2 or 3 parts throughout the month. That takes a little bit of the edge off, but not enormously. So I'm trying to find a more streamlined way so it's easier for me to film and easier for you guys to watch. And I hope this is the streamlined way to do it. So we'll test this out for the next couple of months, and hopefully you enjoy the way that I'm presenting these going forward. Another big reason why I want to be doing it this way is because all the distributors that I've been working with over the last couple of years have really been putting out more and more and more every single month. Umbrella, for example, has launched like 4 or 5 different collections over the last year, on top of a couple of other collections they already have. So every month we're getting a lot of titles. And as I mentioned in last month's videos, it's been really hard to catch up on everything, particularly because the postal system in Australia has been rammed, particularly leading up to Christmas, where there were like 3 or 4 week delays on some parcels. It got to a point where I was receiving titles from the distributors. I was receiving their November wave in early December, and then the December wave would arrive a week later. And then all of a sudden I have like 30 or 40 movies I need to cover. Now this month I will be presenting, I think, at least 3 videos. This is the first of them where we will be going over a bunch of titles from Umbrella Entertainment. I believe these are the November and December waves. Lots of really, really great stuff to go through. So let's get right into it. Firstly, let's take a look at a couple of releases from Umbrella's World Cinema range, starting with La Strada, a film directed by Federico Fellini, of course in the Italian language. Sold by her impoverished mother to Zampano, a brutish fairground wrestler, waif-like Gelsomina lives a life of drudgery as his assistant. After taking to the road with a travelling circus, a budding relationship with a gentle-natured tightrope-walking clown offers a potential refuge from her master's clutches. The film sports a couple of special features, including an audio commentary with film buff Paul Harris, Federico Fellini's autobiography documentary, which is a 60-minute feature, including mostly radio and television interviews with Fellini. It also includes a theatrical trailer. As a lover of classic cinema and as someone of Italian heritage, it's very odd for me to say I've never really watched a Fellini film. I've owned a few of them over the years and never really delved into them before. So this was really my first taste of a Fellini film, and I must say I absolutely adored it. I thought this was just such a really beautiful, heart-wrenching movie. I feel like you got to pick your time to watch it though, because it is one of those movies that takes a huge emotional toll on you. So if you're not kind of in the mood for that kind of movie, maybe put it aside until you are ready to have a little bit of a cry. Studio Canal put out a release in the UK, while Criterion released the film in the US. Both of those versions use the same master, which was one that was produced by Studio Canal, and I believe that Umbrella have used that same master yet again. It's one that looks really great. This movie pulls up really, really fantastically in remastered high definition. So if you're a fan of classic cinema and foreign cinema, and classic foreign cinema, this is definitely a must-own. We've also got Never Look Away, a 2018 German film from Florian Henkel von Donnersmarck. Inspired by real events and spanning 3 eras of German history, Never Look Away tells the story of young art student Kurt, who falls in love with fellow student Ali. What neither Kurt nor Ali knows is that their lives are already connected through a terrible crime committed decades ago. Unfortunately, this one doesn't include any special features except for a theatrical trailer. This is a movie that I knew very little about going into it. Of course, you know, I'd heard about it in a roundabout way. It was nominated for the Best Foreign Language Film at the Academy Awards a couple of years ago, but I knew nothing about, you know, the story, the narrative. anything like that. I kind of managed to avoid everything about it. And I recommend if you are going to watch this, you know nothing about it, that is the best way to go into it, because I think you will be as floored as I was with this movie. This movie is absolutely fantastic. I really loved it. It is a 3-hour epic, so you really have to have the time to kind of put aside to watch this one. It does hit on some pretty heavy themes, but I think it does it in a pretty wonderful way. It's not a really overly heavy film. It is a dramatic film, but it's not too heavy. It's not depressing. It's very life-affirming. Watching this person's journey to become the person that he really wants to be amidst an oppressive society that he's grown up with his whole life. It also has a huge focus on the arts, so he wants to become an artist. He's an incredible artist, and I just think that this is a real love letter, not only to humankind, but to art. I don't want to say too much more, but I adored this movie. This is a 5-star effort for me. I think it's one of my favourite foreign films ever. I think it's going to become an all-time favourite film, full stop. But this transfer is really great. I imagine it's the same transfer that was used on the international releases of the movie. So definitely check this one out. I think this is my favourite that I've discovered through the World Cinema Collection so far. Another one here is Buena Vista Social Club. This is a documentary film from 1999 directed by Wim Wenders. With a small film crew, Wim Wenders accompanied his old friend Rai Kuda on a trip to Havana. Kuda wanted to record his material for Ibrahim Ferrer's solo album at a studio, following the first Buena Vista Social Club CD, and then, still later, to their triumphal concert in New York's Carnegie Hall. He thus followed the old heroes of the traditional Cuban sun music on their paths from being completely forgotten to becoming world famous within a period of just a few months. This includes a number of extras, including additional scenes and a few featurettes. This is the first documentary to be released to the World Cinema range, and it is such a beautiful documentary. Again, we talk about life-affirming things. This is so great. You know, this is a story of redemption, really, about these little-known musicians who skyrocket to fame within a period of a few months, and as a result, they become famous, and the music that they love becomes world-famous and world-renowned as well. It's such a beautifully pieced-together documentary as well. You know, I'm a huge documentary fan, and I'd heard about this over the years, but I never got around to watching it. Glad I finally got a chance to check it out, thanks to Umbrella. Definitely recommend this one too if you are a documentary fan or you're a fan of music in particular. This is just really terrific. This isn't really a great looking movie. It was actually shot on mini DV tape, so this was shot to tape using a mini handheld camcorder. So this is kind of a weird choice to be putting on Blu-ray, particularly in this collection right here, because it just doesn't look fantastic if you know what tape filming looks like. There's not much you can do with it. You can't really remaster it. You can upscale it, and that is obviously the case of what's happened here. Other than that, the music sounds great. I think that's really the main benefit. And if you're keen on this movie, I would definitely recommend this disc, but just that little stipulation there that this doesn't look, it's not a proper full HD image. It's not going to look up to the same standards as the previous releases from this range or any of Umbrella's other kind of premium banners. We've got a couple of new releases from the Ozploitation Classics range as well, starting with Stunt Rock. Stunt Rock is of course directed by Ozploitation powerhouse Brian Trenchard Smith and stars legendary Australian stuntman Grant Page. It also stars fantasy-themed rock band Sorcery. The first 3,000 copies of the film include an all-new 16-page comic book adaptation by Dark Oz, and the set is absolutely loaded with special features, including a brand new conversation with Brian and Margaret Trenchard Smith, extended interviews from Not Quite Hollywood, 2 audio commentaries recorded in 2008, a 2009 introduction to the film with Brian Trenchard Smith, a 2009 audio interview with Sorcery drummer Perry Morris, and a few other small bits and pieces. one of the biggest, boldest, most over-the-top Australian Ozploitation films ever. This is the first time I've actually had a chance to watch it over in full. This is an absolutely bonkers movie. I don't think it's going to be for everyone. This is essentially just a showcase of crazy stunt sequences and insane concert performance by this really weird, wacky band called Sorcery from America. You don't watch this movie for the plot. This was made very, very quickly and put out just like Trenchard Smith was like, I've got this crazy idea, I'm going to make this movie and get it out there as quick as I can on a really, really minimal budget. You watch this movie because it's just so over the top, batshit insane. The stunt sequences are crazy and you kind of wonder how they ever got away with such crazy stuff like this on cinema. If you're a fan of Ozploitation classics and you are picking up these, you definitely got to get your hands on this one. If you're kind of being more selective with the ones you get, definitely pick up Stunt Rock because it is one of the most classic Ozploitation movies of all time. This one has been newly remastered from the original film elements in 4K. It is of course only presented on standard HD Blu-ray, but it looks stunning. Like, I keep saying this every time, it's insane how much effort Umbrella have been putting into remastering these crazy flicks from Australia's past. These movies that have just been overlooked for over the years, that are getting the most beautiful transfers, the most beautiful remasters, and this movie looks better than it ever has, and it looks better than it probably ever should have. But I'm so glad it has, because this is just such a wonderfully bonkers Aussie film, and you gotta see it. Talking about The Man from Hong Kong, we have a brand new reissue of this as part of the new Ozploitation Classics range. This one is also directed by Brian Trenchard Smith and stars Jimmy Wang Yu, Sammo Hung, and of course James Bond himself, George Lazenby. When Hong Kong Inspector Fang Sing Leng travels to Sydney to interview drug trafficker Win Chan, he is flung into an international investigation destined to test his mettle and might. Determined to get his man, Fang will stop at nothing, bringing all manner of mayhem to the streets in a full-on fist-fighting spectacle of explosive proportions. This new edition of The Man from Hong Kong includes 2 discs, including a Blu-ray and a CD soundtrack of the film. It includes a boatload of archival special features, including extended interviews from Not Quite Hollywood, audio commentaries, 50-minute documentary on Brian Trenchard Smith called The Stuntmen, and a 75-minute TV special featuring Grant Page and George Lazenby, directed by Brian Trenchard Smith, called Kung Fu Killers. There's a bunch of behind-the-scenes footage and trailers and press conferences and all that kind of stuff on here as well. Exclusive to this edition is an all-new interview with legendary stuntman Grant Page. This is of course the second edition of The Man from Hong Kong, issued on Blu-ray by Umbrella. The previous one was released under the original unnumbered Ozploitation Classics line. Man from Hong Kong is another undeniable classic from Brian Trenchard Smith. It's over the top, it's crazy, it's everything that you expect from an Ozploitation classic. There's huge, big car chase sequences, explosions, crazy martial arts sequences, action sequences, stunt sequences. It's absolutely mad. If you know what to expect from a Trenchard Smith movie, you really know what you're getting in this. It's really quite fun to experience George Lazenby in a movie like this as well. Of course, this was after he played James Bond only once in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and then got so big-headed that he wanted to pursue other movies and ended up doing low-budget movies like this. But it's such a fun movie. He puts in a really crazy, quirky performance, as does everybody in this movie. It looks absolutely fantastic. It's been cleaned up and really beautifully remastered by Umbrella, but this is the exact same master that is featured on the previous release. So if you do already own the first edition of The Man from Hong Kong on Blu-ray, and you're not too fussed about all the bells and whistles, the slipcover, the new artwork, the CD soundtrack, the brand new special feature, you can probably give this one a pass. But if you are collecting all of these numbered Ozploitation classics with all the bells and whistles, this is definitely one that you do want to pick up. We've also got a couple of new Sunburnt screen releases. First up, Head On. Head On is a 1998 film starring Alex Dimitriadis, Paul Kapsis, Julian Garner, and Alina Mandelis. Ari is a 19-year-old rebel who despises his Greek parents for falling victim to the strictures of tradition. Confused with his own part in the complex universe and unable to express his true feelings, Ari becomes obsessed with extremes of behaviour, sex, drugs, nightclubbing, and a farrago of hedonistic activities. This edition has a number of special features, including a historical featurette, a music video, a number of behind-the-scenes featurettes, and a brand new audio commentary with the film's director. Head On is one of the more, I guess, lesser-known Australian classics from the late 1990s. It's a film that has earned a very, very controversial reputation over the years because, again, this is another movie that is very full-on and very confronting. It says it all there on the label: sex, drugs, rock and roll, a whole bunch of hedonistic activities. It's a movie that is kind of really unlike anything else that has been produced in Australian cinema before. This is an R18 film, so it is incredibly full-on. A lot of full frontal stuff in here going on in all kind of different angles. This is the first time I got a chance to check this one out after hearing about it for many, many years, and it is as confronting as we've all come to know about it. Alex Dimitriadis is absolutely terrific in this. I believe this was his breakout role, and to see his performance is really such a wonder. This is a great Australian film that I think needs to be owned in any serious Australian film fans collection. That is why it's here under the Sunburnt Screens line, and it is definitely a really worthy installment in the line. The transfer on this one is kind of the least exceptional one I've seen from this range so far. I believe this has had a remaster from original elements or some sort of original source, and I feel like there were kind of inherent quality issues to the original source that means this hasn't been able to clean up to what we have come to expect from this range. Next up, we have got Sirens. This is a 1993 film starring Hugh Grant, Sam Neill, Elle Macpherson, Kate Fisher, and Portia de Rossi. It is 1930s Australia. A debonair, forward-thinking young clergyman has arrived from England with his wife to find a scandal brewing. A notorious bohemian is exhibiting a picture that has outraged the church establishment, and the Bishop of Sydney prevails on Anthony to visit the painter and negotiate its withdrawal. This edition features a number of bonus features, including interviews, audio commentaries, and behind-the-scenes featurettes. Sirens is a movie that I've wanted to see for quite a while now. Umbrella has actually previously issued this one on Blu-ray. I unfortunately missed out on it before it went out of print last time, so very, very happy that they finally got it back up onto the market on Blu-ray as part of this Sunburnt Screens range. That said, I believe that the transfer used on this one is the same transfer that was used on the previous Blu-ray, so maybe if you do have that one, there's probably not a huge impetus to pick this one up unless you are collecting these Sunburnt Screens Blu-ray. This movie I really enjoyed. I'm a huge fan of Hugh Grant and Sam Neill. I think Portia de Rossi, Kate Fisher, Elle Macpherson are all great. It's a movie that had so much going for it that I really, just wanted to check out, and I really loved it. This is one that you definitely want to check out. I think it's a hidden gem of Australian cinema. It's one that, again, has been a little bit controversial over the years, particularly with its, depiction of sex and religion and the kind of parallels between them, but I think it's a really quite good movie with some great explorations in there. It's definitely one I would recommend picking up. An interesting thing to note about these two issues of the Sunburnt Screens collection is that they were both released in blue Blu-ray cases instead of clear Blu-ray cases. Now, I do know that there, I think, is a shortage of the clear Blu-ray cases. I think particularly overseas, the manufacturers of those cases have stopped manufacturing them. I assume that was the case here, so they went straight to blue cases, but as you will see in a moment, the clear cases are back, so I'm not too sure what has happened here. I know it's going to be a bit of an eyesore for collectors out there, particularly with collectors OCD and all that. It's going to look a bit weird with all the clear cases, a couple of blue ones, and then some more clear ones. Not too sure what did happen here, but it's just one of those things you unfortunately are going to have to get used to. The next installment is Shame. 1988 film starring Deborah Lee Furness and directed by Steve Jodrell. A stranger, Asta Cadell, limps into an outback town on a crippled motorcycle. Trapped while she waits for repairs, Asta stays at the garage of Tim Curtis. The outsider soon discovers that Tim's young daughter is the latest victim of sexual assault in the town. Some women are intimidated, others make excuses, and the law looks the other way, but nothing ever changes. This set includes a number of bonus features, including an audio commentary and some archival featurettes and television spots. It also includes a brand new interview piece with director, producer, writers, and Simone Buchanan, who also stars in the film. Shame is an Aussie movie I've actually never heard of before, and Deborah Lee Furness, who is the wife of Hugh Jackman, is someone whose films I've actually never seen, so I was really keen to check out Shame. I've got to say I really like this one. This is another kind of dark and harrowing film that I feel like you have to kind of be in the right frame of mind to watch. It has a lot of triggers in here. Of course, sexual assault is the main one this focuses on, so if that's the kind of thing that you can't really deal with, I would highly recommend maybe not watching this one, because it is very confronting, but it is a really terrific movie. It tackles these themes in a way that was very daring at the time for the late 1980s, and I feel like would be quite daring now because of its confronting nature. It's very rare you see something like this that tackles these themes in the way that it does. Deborah Lee Furness is fantastic in this movie. The entire supporting cast is great, including Simone Buchanan, who is wonderful too. It is just such a great piece of Aussie film history, and I think if you are serious about your Aussie film history, this is one that you definitely do want to check out as well. Transfer on this is great. This looks beautiful, beautifully filmic, really great grain structure and stuff. It's not as wonderful as some of the other Sunburnt screens. There is no mention on the website or on the Blu-ray itself of this being a brand new remaster. It does look a little bit dated, so I feel like this might be an older HD remaster that has only just been released on Blu-ray now. I couldn't imagine it really looking all that much better. Again, I think because it might be an inherent thing with the original film elements. It looks good enough. I definitely recommend checking this one out. And we also have The Devil's Playground. This is a 1976 film directed by Fred Shepsey. It stars Arthur Dignam, Nick Tate, Simon Burke, and Thomas Keneally. A semi-autobiographical retelling of the director's own training for the priesthood, the story follows 13-year-old Tom Allen, a serious, likeable boy whose calling for the church is complicated by guilt associated with his sinful thoughts and actions. This one's also bundled with a number of features, including an audio commentary, an interview with the director, and a featurette featuring the director and key cast and crew. Again, we've got another really confronting film right here. This one is a coming-of-age story about a young Australian boy growing up in the priesthood. As you can imagine, it goes to some pretty serious territory here, and it's another movie that's, I guess, not really for the faint of heart. It's not one that I particularly really liked. I found it to be kind of slow, dull, a little bit boring. I guess it's not really the kind of movie for me, but you can definitely see the filmmaking prowess here. This was Fred Shepsey's very first film, and he went on to become one of the great Australian filmmakers. So it was quite interesting to go back and check out his very first film. I think it is an important film in Australian film history, again, because of the themes that it tackles and the way that it tackles them, and it really was a groundbreaking movie in the middle 70s and fairly controversial at the time as well. Again, this is another one that looks like it might have come from a fairly dated master. It looks decent, but it's not up to the standards that we have come to expect from this range, particularly the first ones, again, that were released that were brandly newly remastered 4K transfers. Again, this one doesn't mention anything on the website or on the Blu-ray itself for this being a new master, so I'm inclined to think that this is in fact a catalogue master that was maybe used for a previous DVD or something. Still looks decent, but I think it probably could look better. We've got a couple of new releases from the Beyond Genres range. The Beast from 1975. A black comedy of sexual manners set around an arranged wedding to occur on the grounds of an elegant chateau. This depraved tale of animal desire is at once wry, riotous and perverse, and remains a masterwork of art house erotic cinema. It includes a number of bonus features, including a making-of featurette, an introduction by film critic Peter Bradshaw, interviews, and other featurettes. Alright, I don't really know where to start with this one. This is a pretty surreal, confronting movie on multiple levels. It is a piece of French art house erotica, but it's the kind of movie that you kind of watch and you go, how on earth did this get made? This was in fact banned in multiple territories for many years and has only recently in some territories become legal. This is a surrealist fantasy, if you want to call it, that touches on a lot of pretty heavy themes, including at the forefront bestiality. There's some pretty graphic sequences in this film. It's a very, very strange movie. I feel like if you are into your Beyond Genres range, you really know kind of what to expect from a movie like this. If you're not, if you're kind of a newbie to this kind of world of cinema, which I certainly am, I think you should approach, as the cover of this actually says, approach with caution, because it is a very confronting and very graphic film. Wouldn't particularly say it's one that I enjoyed or even really liked at all, but it's a kind of an interesting one to experience. I'm always open to experiencing all different parts of cinema, and this is just a very, very strange piece of cinema. But props to Umbrella for kind of bringing these kind of hidden gems of world cinema kind of to the surface and whatever. This has a really great master. Again, I feel like this is one of those movies that never really deserved the really fantastic master that it's got. I, of course, do say that with jest. This pulls up really beautifully. It looks fantastic. And again, it's the kind of movie that you never thought you would see in such a beautiful high-definition transfer or master. If you're a fan of this movie or this kind of movie, I think this is a release that is worth picking up. We've also got Undead. Undead is an Australian film from 2003. An onslaught of meteorites crash land in the small country town of Berkeley. The bombardment brings with it an otherworldly infection. The living dead are awakened, and a small band of desperate survivors, led by local beauty pageant winner Renee and town loony Marion, fight for survival in a world gone mad. It's loaded with a whole bunch of bonus features, including a soundtrack CD, an audio commentary, and a bunch of making-of featurettes. Undead has found itself with kind of a cult classic reputation in recent years. It's a movie that's just shy of 20 years old at this point, but it's the first time that it's finally getting a release on Blu-ray, again, in a really gorgeously remastered format from Umbrella. This looks absolutely terrific for the kind of movie that it is. This is really what you would imagine an Aussie kind of exploitation, zombie, horror, a post-apocalyptic kind of movie to be. It's very, very weird. It's not particularly my kind of movie. It's like what you would think of like a mockbuster kind of movie. It's not meant to be taken seriously. It's got some great black comedy. It's a bit of a satire of the genre at the same time. And I know a lot of people who really, really love it. It's just not particularly my kind of thing. There's a lot of really weird stuff in here. There's zombies, there's aliens, there's, you know, low budget special effects. For the kind of movie, I think it's quite fun and enjoyable and, you know, a really decent low budget indie cult flick. If you love these kind of movies, I would definitely give this one a recommendation. We've also got one more inclusion in the Sensual Sinema range. This is the second release from this range. It is Sex and Zen. This is a 1991 film from China. It's an erotic comedy about sexual dalliances and their retribution, based on an ancient Chinese literary classic. It's a cautionary tale about a man who marries a beautiful young woman, but after a sexually unfulfilling wedding night, decides to set out on an odyssey to conquer as many women as possible. Alright, again, I'm going to find it difficult to be able to put into words this movie. It is essentially a softcore film, kind of a comedy as well. It's kind of a spoof movie on the genre. It has like a proper story, a proper script, and it is a cult favorite that has screened in art house picture cinemas around the world. But this is a movie with a lot of very full-on sequences. Very, as it says here, very imaginative and lavish sex scenes, which are all real. I don't know what else I can really say about this. This is shaping up to be a very interesting line from Umbrella, this Sensual Sinema. The first title was Showgirls, which was a legitimate film released, you know, theatrically. This one is kind of more on the art house, erotica kind of side, softcore kind of side of things. And I believe the next couple that they're bringing out is kind of verging on this area as well. I think it's kind of interesting. I think it's kind of a fun little inclusion in Umbrella's selection out there. And look, this looks great. It has cleaned up very well. It's, again, the kind of movie that you never thought you would see an HD transfer of, but it is a cult classic, and it is also very, very funny as well. So it does stand in its own right as just kind of an adult, a very, very adult comedy film that is a very, very interesting one. So if you're interested in this kind of thing, definitely check this one out. There were a number of sequels to this too. That's how successful it was. There you go. I'm very interested to see what comes next from this Sensual Sinema range. We've also got a couple of double features here, including All-Star Comedy Capers Volume 1. This one includes The Fortune, starring Warren Beatty and Jack Nicholson and directed by Mike Nichols, and Harry and Walter Go to New York, which stars Michael Caine, James Caan, Elliot Gould and Diane Keaton. These are a couple of movies that I've wanted to check out for some time now. They were released as part of the imprint, the Powerhouse Films imprint line over in the UK a little while ago. They're ones I've always wanted to pick up and then just kind of never got around to. Finally, they're here on the Australian market, which is great. These are not two particularly fantastic movies. I feel like Umbrella has done the right thing by bundling them together in a double feature. They are, of course, featured on the one disc here. In both cases, quite a number of high-profile actors are in here, but they're movies that are kind of not really spoken about, movies I think you probably never really would have heard of. And there is a reason for that, is because these are fairly mediocre kind of road trip buddy comedy, kind of screwball comedy films that aren't particularly that great. They're middle rung, but they are really enjoyable to watch, I think anyway. I'm a huge fan of, you know, all of the actors that are featured across these two movies, and it's really great to kind of see an understated performance, maybe a performance, a film of theirs that hasn't really had a release widely in the past, or that kind of gloss over. I feel like it's a really great way to get your hands on them and just to check them out, specifically to check out a couple of performances of some of your favorite actors. The films, again, aren't really that great, but I enjoyed going through them nonetheless. We've also got Comedy Capers Double Feature Volume 2. This collection includes two films starring Gene Wilder and directed by the late, great Sidney Poitier. Stir Crazy, which co-stars Richard Pryor, and Hanky Panky, which co-stars Gilda Radner. So this one right here is the better of the two double features, I think. These are two really, really fun movies. Stir Crazy, of course, is one of the most classic comedy films of the era. It's one of the best films that Wilder and Richard Pryor did together. They did 3 or 4 movies together, and this is like one of the absolute highlights. It's previously been released by Viavision here in Australia only like 2 or 3 years ago. This is a brand new reissue of it. I believe Umbrella has used the exact same master of it. Hanky Panky, however, makes its debut on Blu-ray here in Australia. I think this is actually the debut of Hanky Panky on Blu-ray anywhere in the world. This is one I've wanted to see for so long. Of course, Gene Wilder was married to Gilda Radner. I believe this is the movie where they met. Both of them are, again, buddy comedy, road trip, screwball comedies, but I think they are both absolutely first class. Stir Crazy, of course, is the better of the two films, but they are both so enjoyable. I believe they're going to be doing another All-Star Comedy Capers double feature in a month or two that has another couple of Gene Wilder films in it as well. We've also got Retro Sci-Fi Double Feature Volume 2. This includes 2 monster flicks, including The Monolith Monsters and The Deadly Mantis. Again, another fantastic double feature from Umbrella. This is my favorite kind that they have been doing. These classic kind of low-budget sci-fi horror movies that are really short and you can literally watch as a double feature. I always do that with these. I put aside a morning and I watch them both back to back, as I did with these two right here. They are fun, schlocky, over-the-top sci-fi horror films that aren't quite to the standard of like the big budget like Hollywood films that were made at the time. These would have all spawned kind of during the time that the Dracula and Frankenstein and Wolfman, Invisible Man movies were all huge with Universal. So all these studios started making kind of more lower budget monster sci-fi flicks, and they're just always so fun. They've got crappy special effects, crappy acting, really lame generic storylines, but they are all so much fun. These are 2 of my favorite ones that I have seen of these kind of movies. Umbrella has released a number of them, and I think they released a couple of double features that are now being rebranded as sci-fi double features over the next coming months, which I should hopefully be able to spotlight for you on the next video. We've also got a Captain America double feature on DVD, which includes the 1979 television movie and the sequel, Captain America 2: Death Too Soon. These are, of course, two live-action Captain America movies that were made in the late 1970s by, I think, the CBS network. They were the network who were, at the time, doing the Spider-Man live-action series, The Incredible Hulk. They did a Doctor Strange movie. They did the Wonder Woman TV series, which was absolutely the best of the lot. But when you hear people talk about those 1970s cheesy Captain America movies, this is them. Captain America is a very different guy than what we know from the MCU movies. He's a very kind of lame superhero fighting kind of ground level criminals on his motorcycle, which has a shield, a tiny little shield on the front of it. And he's in a very, very spandexy, lame outfit. He's just certainly not the Captain America we know and love. But these movies are fun to experience. They are tele movies, so again, really don't expect too much. It's always fun to kind of go back and check out some of the earlier iterations of the characters that were put on the screen. And this is definitely one of the weirdest ones of all. We've also got a fantastic DVD collection, Nicole Kidman Australian Icon Collection, featuring a number of movies released between 1983 and 1996. The films included in this box set include Bush Christmas, BMX Bandits, Skin Deep, Wills and Burke, Emerald City, and Portrait of a Lady. These are a collection of films from young, innocent Nicole Kidman's early days in film, where she was a fun-loving Aussie gal with long, curly red hair. I love watching some of Nicole's earliest work. She did some really, really great Australian movies and some really, really awful ones too. There is kind of a mix of them here. There are some really great classics like BMX Bandits. Wills and Burke is such a fun movie as well. And then there are a couple of duds in here like Emerald City and a couple of the others that really aren't that great. But this is a really great way to bundle together a whole bunch of Nicole Kidman's earliest works and collect them all in one really decently priced collection. They are, of course, all DVDs, so the quality does kind of vary between the movies. Don't expect anything that is fantastic. These aren't taken from brand new remasters or anything. I believe these are all just movies that Umbrella have released individually previously and then just kind of bundled all up together in this, again, easy to buy collection. We've also got a brand new Drive-In Delirium box set, which is called Ultimate Dusk Till Dawn Till Dusk Trailer Marathon Domestic Version. This is a 6-disc set, which includes all 6 previous Drive-In Delirium releases. So this is not a brand new issue as part of the Drive-In Delirium range. This is all 6 previous editions bundled up into one big mega set. It includes more than 30 hours of horror, action, sci-fi, and TNA trailers, uncensored and remastered in high definition. I was very quite surprised to see that Umbrella were reissuing them all as a box set, which I think is a really fantastic way to collect these all to collect them all for people like me who may have missed out on all of the original ones. These have all cleaned up really well. Again, these are the kind of things that you would never thought would get remastered in HD, and they all just look absolutely terrific. I imagine that most of these are kind of elements that were in public domain and people found, I guess, like the trailers lying around on 35mm or 16mm film, and they've just been kind of remastered and reissued on these sets. Really, really great compilation of stuff, and it's just so fun. Some of these trailers are little pieces of art in themselves, and if you are a big fan of like grungy, grindhouse, or exploitation stuff, the art of the film trailer, particularly a lot of these are from like 60s, 70s, 80s, that kind of era. If you're into that kind of schlocky stuff, this is really quite a fun thing to explore. We also have a brand new 4K issue from Umbrella, which is Australian film The Babadook. Where there is imagination, there is darkness, and from within that darkness lurks a being of unfathomable terror, close to home. Amelia is a single mother plagued by the violent death of her husband. When a disturbing storybook called The Babadook turns up at her house, she is forced to battle with her son's deep-seated fear of a monster. Soon she discovers a sinister presence all around her. At only 8 years old, The Babadook has really wormed itself into the echelon of Aussie classic films. This is one of the most wonderful horror films ever made in Australia, let alone anywhere else in the world. This is such a terrifying, chilling, horrific movie that uses great use of The Unknown. This is such a, again, wonderfully chilling movie, and this 4K issue of it is fantastic. This is easily a 5-star effort, and it looks great. The cinematography, it's very dark, it's very mysterious, it pulls up great on here. Filmically fantastic, it's got a really nice filmic look, and the audio on it is first class as well. Again, this is a movie that really relies on your senses, whether that's what you're seeing or not seeing, and particularly what you're kind of hearing is what kind of leads the way. And that's kind of, I guess that's kind of a staple of most horror films. But this is a really stellar 4K issue from Umbrella. This has also been issued on 4K over in the UK under Second Sight. I believe it is the exact same transfer used on both discs. I think the special features might be the same as well. I'm not too sure. I haven't really looked into the Second Sight release. We've also got a few studio catalog releases from Umbrella over the last couple of months. First up is The Wolfman, starring Benicio del Toro, Anthony Hopkins, Emily Blunt, and Hugo Weaving. This is, of course, the 2010 version of The Wolfman, which is inspired by Universal's timeless horror classic. And I think this one is quite fun. Benicio del Toro is really great in the role of Talbot, and again, the supporting cast is really fantastic as well. We've got this really great grungy gothic horror atmosphere, and I think if you really like the original monster horror films, this is a really quite a good homage to them, and I think one of the best kind of homages in that it takes on that kind of same style, that same kind of tone. Now, this film has been released on Blu-ray in Australia before in an edition that included both the theatrical and extended edition of the movie and a bunch of special features. While this version does include all of the special features that were included in the previous version, this new version only includes the theatrical cut of the movie, not the extended cut, which I think is like maybe 10 or 20 minutes longer. It's quite a decently extended thing. I think the extended version might actually be a little bit better. I think it adds quite a bit more to the movie. But if you're keen on checking this one out, the Umbrella edition, I mean, it looks fantastic. It's the exact same port that Universal would have used on their original Blu-ray. So it's first class, it's a studio quality release. And look, if you want to check this movie out, I would recommend just picking this one up. The theatrical edition is perfectly fine. We've got Driving Miss Daisy with Morgan Freeman, Jessica Tandy, and Dan Aykroyd. Directed by Australian director Bruce Beresford. When 72-year-old Daisy Worthen crashes her car, it's cause for her son Borley to step in and arrange for a chauffeur. Mild-mannered Hoke is the man for the job, but yearning for her independence, resentment gets in the way of their professional relationship as Daisy stubbornly clings to the past. This is one of the most heartwarming films of all time. Morgan Freeman, Jessica Tandy are just absolutely superb in this film. The story of their incredible friendship is so heartwarming, it's sweet, it's charming, it's just such a really beautiful feel-good movie, and if you've never seen it, I definitely implore you to check this one out. So this is the very first release of the movie here on Australian shores, which is great. I mean, I don't know why it's taken so long, because this is a classic movie directed by one of the greatest Australian filmmakers of all time. Really don't know why it's taken this long to finally get onto the local market, but at any rate, it is here now and definitely recommend picking it up. The quality of this is fantastic. Again, I'm pretty sure Umbrella are just using the Warner Brothers port from the US releases of this. So if you do own the US release, I would say there's probably no point picking this one up, but if you have been waiting for this movie to hit the local market for a long time, pick it up right away. You won't be disappointed. We've also got a brand new reprint of Lost in Translation. This is the 2003 film from Sofia Coppola, starring Bill Murray and Scarlett Johansson. A lonely aging movie star named Bob Harris and a conflicted newlywed Charlotte meet in Tokyo. Strangers in a foreign land, the two find escape, distraction and understanding amidst the bright Tokyo lights after a chance meeting in the quiet lull of the hotel bar. They form a bond that is as unlikely as it is heartfelt and meaningful. Lost in Translation is one of the most classic films of the early 2000s. It came up in a whole resurgence of kind of low-budget independent films starring a big billing Hollywood talent, in this case Bill Murray and Scarlett Johansson, who was really kind of only coming up at the start of her career. They are both terrific in this movie. It's such a sweetly charming, dryly comedic, comedy, dramedy movie, one of the finest from the era. Now, Umbrella actually states on their website that this is the first Blu-ray release in Australia. I do have to correct that. There was a release in the Australian market back in about 2012. I have that original release in my collection. It is an Australian release. It's not one imported from overseas. That said, if you do own the previous version, whether that is the Australian edition or the international edition from America or the UK, this is exactly the same. So if you do already own it, then you really don't need to pick this one up. But if you don't already own this, or if you haven't seen this, definitely check it out. This is such an incredible film. We've also got a new issue of Robin Hood Men in Tights, Mel Brooks's 1993 comedy classic. Now, this one actually hasn't been released on Blu-ray here in Australia. This is a debut release of this movie. I'm so happy. This is one of my favorite comedies ever. It's one of my favorite Mel Brooks movies ever. It is so funny, so hilarious. It's a great spoof on not only, you know, the classic Robin Hood movies, but those classic swashbuckling films from the 20s and 30s and 40s. It absolutely takes the piss out of just about everything you can imagine, and it is, again, absolutely hilarious. It has been available on Blu-ray before over in the States. I think there's been a release like 10 years ago. They put one out, and one came out in the UK about 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. I believe the port is probably exactly the same. I've taken a very quick look. It looks fantastic. It looks better than it ever has. I've watched this movie a million times on DVD, but this HD Blu-ray is miles above that old DVD. So if you're a fan of this movie, definitely pick this one up. It is a really great release. If you've never seen this movie, you've got to pick it up as well because it's just so much fun. We've got a couple of new release films here as well, including Prisoners of the Ghostland, starring Nicolas Cage. In the treacherous frontier city of Samurai Town, a ruthless bank robber is sprung from jail by wealthy warlord the Governor, whose adopted granddaughter Bernice has gone missing. The Governor offers the prisoner his freedom in exchange for retrieving the runaway. Strapped into a leather suit that will self-destruct within 5 days, the bandit sets off on a journey to find the young woman and his own path to redemption. Alright, so we all know the kind of movies that Nicolas Cage is making at the moment. He's one of those actors that is literally just taking any movie that is flung at him, whether they are good or whether they are bad. He's done a couple of movies recently that are fairly decent, and then a whole bunch which are just pure drivel, really. This, unfortunately, is one that falls in with the latter. This is very similar to one, like I can't even remember the name of it, that was released a few months ago. It was just really trashy, over the top, low budget. This is exactly the same. It's got martial arts stuff thrown in there, over-the-top action sequences that are produced with very, very low budget special effects that are just not very good. Blends kind of science fiction, post-apocalyptic kind of elements, and of course Nick Cage is at his melodramatic, over-the-top best here. This is just a really, really awful movie that I sadly could not get through. I understand that these movies probably aren't intended to be really great. They are intended to be schlocky and, you know, movies that are so bad that they're good, but unfortunately this movie is just so bad that it was bad. It's just something I couldn't get into, but I know there are a lot of people out there who are really loving the kind of stuff that Nick Cage and Bruce Willis are pumping out at the moment, and this one I think is definitely for you guys. We've also got Apex, which stars Bruce Willis and Neil McDonough. Former policeman James Malone is serving a life sentence for a crime he did not commit. He is given a chance to regain freedom if he survives a deadly game in which a group of hunters pay for the pleasure of hunting another human on a remote island. Malone accepts the rules, and when he arrives, he unleashes all hell by creating traps and waging a psychological war against the hunters. Okay, so in the same vein as those Nicolas Cage movies, this is another one of these kind of weird run-of-the-mill movies that Bruce Willis has been pumping out the last, decade. Again, he obviously gets offered a movie, gets offered a bundle of cash. He's like, I'll just do it. I'm just cashing the checks at this point in my career. He goes in there, he phones in a really dreadful performance. You can tell he doesn't want to be there. He doesn't care about the work that he's doing anymore. It is really quite a shame. The difference is Nick Cage, you kind of get the feeling that he actually cares about his work and he cares about being there and he's doing his best. Apex, unfortunately, is the first one of these Bruce Willis kind of straight to DVD, home video, whatever you want to call it, movies that I've checked out, and it's as awful as I expected. It's a really low budget, sci-fi, thriller, horror kind of fusion thing that it looks like it's been produced by students. It looks like a student film. That's how low the budget is. It looks like they haven't even bothered with color grading, or they haven't had the budget even to do it. It's just a really, really poor movie. Again, I know a lot of people love these because they're just so bad that they're enjoyable. I really didn't get any enjoyment out of this. It looks great. It looks very good. It's obviously been filmed in HD and all that kind of stuff, but don't expect special effects or anything like that to look great. It's not a very good movie. Bruce Willis pumped out something like 6 movies last year, and this is just one of them. I can't even imagine what the other ones are like. We've also got Coming Home in the Dark. This is a 2021 film from New Zealand. A family trip through the New Zealand wilderness turns into a nightmare when they're suddenly confronted by a pair of drifters in this Sundance thriller starring Daniel Gillies and Miriam McDowell. New Zealand are known for making some pretty quirky movies. This one isn't one of them. This is in fact a pretty dark, heavy, and confronting film. So again, if you're not into the really, really heavy stuff, maybe steer clear of this one. But I think the film is really well made. It looks beautiful. It's shot absolutely stunningly. Cinematography is fantastic in here, and the Blu-ray transfer of this is really, really very nice. The performances in here are really great as well. This is a pretty solid kind of road horror film, but it's one of the more confronting and dark ones that I have seen. If you're into this kind of thing, I would definitely recommend checking this one out, particularly if you want to see something that's maybe a little bit more local in this genre kind of area right here. It is a very decent movie. It's not something that I absolutely loved, but I actually think it's really quite good. I love movies that are coming out of New Zealand and Australia at the moment. There are a lot of them that kind of have this same kind of tone, but this is one that I think is really definitely worth checking out. We've also got a brand new set, which is Frank Herbert's Dune collection. Only a couple of months ago, Umbrella issued Frank Herbert's Dune miniseries on Blu-ray, and now this month they have finally bundled it up together with the follow-up series Children of Dune, which was released by Umbrella on Blu-ray back in 2017. This collection is the first collection that bundles both miniseries together. I know this might be a little bit frustrating for those who literally just bought the Dune miniseries on Blu-ray and maybe, don't own Children of Dune. Would have been nice to pick it up in this little box set right here. The Children of Dune miniseries is still readily available on Blu-ray. It's not out of print, so if you do want to go and pick up the Children of Dune set, you can go and get that still from Umbrella's website, or from anywhere else you buy your Blu-rays from. But this collection is a really great set for those who don't own either of the series. I personally haven't watched either of these. I took a quick look at the discs. They look fantastic, really beautiful. I'm not sure if they've been remastered or anything, but really great HD transfers on both series. I've just had a very quick look. I have never watched Dune before. I've never read it. I don't really know anything about it. I still haven't had a chance to see the new movie, and until I do get a chance to see the movie, I'm not going to watch these because I don't want to I want my first proper Dune experience to be with that brand new movie, so I hope you can understand that. But if you're a Dune fan, if you love the movie, you love the books, whatever, I think this is a really great pickup for you as a Dune fan, so you can go out and get it from Umbrella right now, really well priced too. Next up is a brand new DVD collection of the 2001 miniseries My Brother Jack. It's an award-winning Australian series based on George Johnson's classic novel, as the story of two brothers, David and Jack Meredith, set between the two world wars. So of course this is a Australian miniseries from the early 2000s. We used to get so much of these back when the networks were actually throwing a lot of money into tally movies and miniseries. You get one occasionally now, but certainly not as many as you did back when this was made, and earlier than that. In fact, there was a version of this made back in the 1960s, which is one of the most classic Australian TV series, miniseries ever put to air. This one was produced again in the early 2000s by Channel 10 and Granada Television. So the production quality on this is really top notch. It feels a little bit dated now. So I feel like if you're going back to this with fresh eyes, it does feel a little bit dated. I mean, it is a 20-year-old production by now, and stuff from that era is starting to feel a little bit dated now, sadly. But it has great production values. All the acting's really great. It's a little bit melodramatic and over the top, but it's the kind of thing you would expect from a Australian television miniseries. There's 2 parts. It's essentially like a 3-hour tally movie, so you kind of know what to expect going into this. It's again very well produced and really quite enjoyable. If you can get past that kind of dated aspect of it, I would definitely recommend this one to you if you're into this kind of thing. And at that brings us to the end of this Blu-ray DVD collection haul video. Okay, this one is a little bit long, but this is 2 months worth of releases from Umbrella, so please forgive me. I really hope this format works okay for you. I am going to be doing 2 more videos this month. One is going to be covering a bunch of titles sent in from Viavision and Kicks, and some stuff that I've picked up along the way this month, Amazon, eBay, etc, etc. I'm also going to have another video with a couple of the last 2 waves of imprint titles from Viavision as well, so keep your eye out for them. Please let me know down in the comments if you like this format. Is this a better format than what I've done in the past? I know hopefully going forward this format is going to make these videos a lot shorter. This one was just long because it's 2 months worth of titles thrown in together. Hopefully I'll see you on the next one. Take it easy. See you there. Hey everyone, if you haven't yet, smash that big old subscribe button up on your screen to keep up to date with all my content, and hit that like button down below. Also, don't forget to check me out on social media, and please consider supporting me over on Patreon for as little as $1 a month for exclusive videos, early access content, and to get your name up on the screen. Thanks again for watching.